So welcome to my channel. That's what we call the good life. Today I'm going to be potting on some of my seedlings. I have some sweet peppers, some chili peppers, some tomatoes and some aubergines here, which are getting a little bit big and need to be potted on. So first of all, I'd like to say a thank you to a company called Slarmor, who were very, very kind enough to send me a pair of ladies' gloves to try out for them, which was very, very kind of them. I don't know about any of you, but I end up sometimes using just rubber gloves because a lot of the garden gloves are a little bit too big and a little bit too clumpy for my hands. So I'm really, really interested to see how these work. They're made of a soft, breathable fabric, and they've got like a faux leather on the underneath, and they've also got the little tabs on the index fingers there for using your phones or your tablets, which I did test out before I came out and I found it worked really well. You touch it really gently, you don't push it really hard. Again, I tried pushing it really hard when I tried it first, and you touch it really gently, and it did really work really well, so I was really impressed with that. But let's get on to gardening. We will put a link up on the screen and also one in the description if you would like to purchase a pair of these gloves. They feel really, really lovely actually, and I can really move my hands really, really well in them. Quite often when I'm potting up, I feel I have to take my gloves off and on and off and on when I'm doing delicate jobs, so this will be a really, really good test for these gloves. So I've got a mixture of multi-purpose and core here that I mixed together. I find this works really well for not only starting my seeds off, but also potting my seedlings on. So I've got some pots here, which I'll get out ready. So first of all, I've got a little tool here. It's like a little mini trowel. If you've not got one of these, something like a butter knife would work. If you can get your hands on one of these, it's jolly, jolly handy. So what I do is I pop a little bit of compost, all depending on the height of the seed, in the pot, like so. So just like that. So it's got a little bit for the roots to land on. I then lift out one of my tomatoes, like so, very, very gently. So these are really handy for just scooping underneath it. What I will say is try and touch the plant as little as possible. If you're going to handle it, aim for the seed leaves, not the true leaves that come out of the top. But don't beat yourself up too much if you end up grabbing the wrong one. And what I generally do is I generally try and not touch the plant as little. I try and touch it as little as possible, and I just pop the compost in and around it and just give it a little bit of a shake like that. So my aim is to not damage the stalk or the roots or the plant in any way. Sometimes we do bash the plant a little bit, or we touch something we didn't mean to, but you just do the best you can, and then I push the compost down like so. Now, one thing to do that's really important is to label it. It's very tempting, because I know I've definitely done it myself, to pop loads of things on and then realise I've not labelled it. So I don't want you making the mistakes that I have made in the past. So I've got some labels here. Now this is sometimes the job when I end up having to take my gloves off, but at the moment, because it's got the lovely faux leather on it, any dirt that I've got on it I can knock off. So these are a honeycomb variety. So I'm going to pop that on there, honeycomb Tom, so I know what it is, and I'm going to pop the label in there like that. I'm going to do a few more because they are slightly different types and slightly different sizes, and they can be a little bit more fiddly when they're smaller. I mean, generally speaking, we try and pop things on when they've grown a little bit more and they've got their true leaves on them. Until that point, they are a little bit too delicate to try and pot on. So I'm next going to pot on a Hungarian hot wax pepper, which is over here. Same thing, so I gently put my trowel around it, so I loosen the soil around it, and then I try and scoop up. I generally try and scoop up a bit of soil with it, so I damage, because I've got quite a bit of root on them, as you can see. Look, I want to try and get as much of that into the pot as possible. Now, because these aren't quite so tall, I've put a little bit more compost in the bottom of that pot. And then again, the same thing, I pop the soil around it, and once I've got a bit on the side, I've then kind of got something to rest the seedling on, and then I can put the rest of the soil around the rest of the pot and just gently give it a shake, give it a jiggle. That's the pot, not yourself. And then get them in there like that and gently pat it down. And again, make sure you label it. especially with things that look quite similar, like hot peppers and sweet peppers. You don't want to get the two muddled up. So again, if I put on there Hungarian hot wax, chili, and pop a label in like that. So next to do the aubergines, which are the smallest of my seedlings, but I think that they would probably benefit from being potted on as well, and they have got some true leaves on there, so it is a good time to start potting them on. Again, that will again need a little bit more soil because they are that little bit smaller in there. Exactly the same thing. Get your little, either your knife or your little trowel like I've got, and try and scoop it out as best you can. Sometimes all the soil does break away, and if it does, it really doesn't matter that much. So grab it by the seed leaves, which are the bottom leaves. They're the first ones that show if you're not sure what they are. And again, exactly the same thing. Start to put a bit of compost in. The minute you've got a bit in, that seedling's then got something to prop itself against, and you can tilt it and start to fill up a little bit more. So almost done. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching my video, and it's given you a really good insight in how to pot on your seedlings. And obviously I'm not going to forget to label that too. Just a reminder, if you would like to purchase some of these gloves, there will be a link up on the screen and also one in the description. And the last thing we need to do after potting our seedlings on is we obviously need to water them. So I find one of the smaller watering cans really useful. So obviously I've got the bigger watering cans for when things get a little bit bigger, but when things are small like this, when you water them, it can be a little bit tricky. So just to have a little watering can like this is really useful. There you go, as you can see. Sometimes, and none of these are going to do it, they drop over a little bit when you water them. Now, just to warn you, you just put a bit more soil around them if they did flop over. The other thing is, when you transplant things the first time, in the first day or two, they can have transplant shock and they can flop over. Don't panic, they normally pick up. Just keep looking after them. And just to let you know, I'm doing these in my greenhouse, but these will go back indoors and they will go under my grow lamp. I won't leave them out in my greenhouse because even though it's beautifully sunny at the moment, in fact on my thermometer it measures about 20, tonight it will get down to 0 or below that, and they would perish if I left them in there. This is just for the purposes of potting them on, and then they will go back into my kitchen or my conservatory so that they don't get too cold. Again, a massive thank you to Slarmor. I've used these gloves. I've been able to do the job that I wanted to do without having to take them off and on and off and on. And they are incredibly comfortable. They're really easy to brush off, which is another thing as a gardener. The minute you start to do something, you can't get the dirt off of your gloves to then do another job. So I think that faux leather really does what it needs to do. They're really comfortable. My hands aren't getting too hot and sweaty either, which can be, again, another real issue with gardening gloves. And they are really pretty as well. So a great big thank you to them, and if you would like to purchase a pair, please do look in the description.